I have a toddler, a foster daughter that I just got. She was choking, and I tried to do the Heimlich on her. She's breathing, but it's not good. Please hurry.
The voice at the beginning, filled with desperation and pleas for help, belongs to Jennifer Rosenbaum. In a desperate tone, she pleads for help for her 2-year-old foster daughter, who is barely breathing. Jennifer's battle for adoption has exposed serious flaws in the child welfare system, leaving innocent young children in the hands of cruel people. We invite you to read all the details of this horrific and outrageous story that has shocked the state of Georgia. First of all, I want to remind you that you can support my channel with a sponsorship subscription. Your support will help me to create more interesting investigations for you and uncover the terrible secrets of criminal cases. I would be very grateful if you would like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss new investigations on my channel. Without further ado, let's dive into the details of this criminal story. Laila Marie Daniel was born on July 18, 2013, in Georgia to parents Tessa Clendening and Anthony Daniel. At the time of our story, she had an older sister named Millie. Laila, with her curly hair, wide blue eyes, apple cheeks, and big smile, was affectionately known as Fat F Baby by her grandmother, Gina Banks. As a toddler, Laila was a chubby, food-loving child who enjoyed strawberry oatmeal, powdered donuts, and chicken nuggets. She also delighted in making pretend food in her toy kitchen and adored the characters and songs on the TV program Yo Gabba Gabba. Laila didn't talk much as she was still learning and a bit behind other kids her age. Despite this, she was keen to remind everyone that she was a big girl. Laila was a sweetheart, always laughing and loving everyone around her. She was cherished by her family, especially her mother, grandmother, and great-aunt Kim Smith. Tessa's own childhood was marred by being taken away from her parents and placed into foster care, where she met Jennifer Hall, who would later become significant in their lives. Jennifer's family often lived in dire conditions, moving from the streets to tents and cars. At age 9, Jennifer was placed in foster care, where she and Tessa eventually lived in the same group home. Though they were not close friends, they knew each other. In October 2011, Tessa gave birth to her first daughter, Millie, from her then-boyfriend Jacob Place. A year later, Tessa began a relationship with Anthony Daniel, the father of her second daughter, Laila, who was born 9 months after Tessa and Anthony started their relationship. During the first year of Laila's life, she and her sister Millie lived together with their mother. According to reports from the Georgia Department of Family and Children Services, DFCS, their home was visited by agency staff at least 4 times between September 2013 and August 2014 as part of an investigation into complaints of possible child abuse. Soon after the last DFCS visit in August 2014, according to change of address records, Tessa moved with her daughters to North Carolina. The DFCS case against her was closed due to her relocation to another state. Tessa claims that her departure was not an attempt to avoid contact with social workers, but was motivated by a desire to start a new life elsewhere. In July 2014, when Laila turned 1 year old, Tessa was already experiencing problems with substance abuse, as evidenced by medical records from a local clinic. A few days after celebrating Laila's first birthday, Tessa was admitted to the hospital with symptoms of an overdose. After this incident, Tessa's older daughter Millie was temporarily placed in the care of her grandmother, Gina Banks, while the younger daughter, Laila, was placed with a family acquaintance, Cynthia Tate. These changes in the girls' lives are confirmed by notarized temporary custody documents. According to Cynthia Tate, despite the difficulties in her mother's life, 1-year-old Laila was developing well and was a cheerful child. The girl appeared healthy and well cared for, regularly visiting Tessa on holidays and other occasions. In 2015, Tessa was arrested on charges of conspiracy to distribute illegal substances and spent 3 months in jail. At that time, the father of her younger daughter Laila, Anthony Daniel, was already serving a sentence for illegal possession of a firearm. Due to the incarceration of both parents, Tessa arranged for family friends to take care of her daughters after her release. She moved in with her acquaintance, Cynthia Tate, but soon failed a drug test. This became the basis for removing the children from the family and placing them in foster care. Tessa's daughters, Millie and Laila, were placed in the care of Loretta Brown, an experienced foster parent. Child welfare authorities continued to monitor the situation while Tessa tried to cope with her problems and regain custody of her children. Laila and Millie showed no signs of abuse when they first arrived at Loretta's home. They quickly adjusted, with Laila always clinging to Loretta and Millie playing happily with Loretta's daughter. At that time, Laila was 21 months old, and her sister was 4 years old. They had managed to live in several foster homes, where they received a lot of love, but obviously, this was not enough in the opinion of social services. According to later complaints, officials sought to find the optimal place to ensure the well-being of the girls but kept moving them from place to place. While this was happening, Tessa, aware of her addiction and instability, actively participated in the entire temporary adoption process. Given her love for her daughters, she wanted the best for them and did not give up custody, hoping to get them back after completing rehabilitation. Jennifer Rosenbaum saw the girls and expressed interest in taking them in. With an impressive personality and experience in both the military and legal fields, she approached Tessa through social media, offering to care for the girls until Tessa could regain custody. Trusting Jennifer, Tessa agreed, which led to a series of supervised visits. However, Laila began to exhibit injuries during visits with Jennifer, which Loretta reported to DFCS. Despite concerns, the girls were transferred to the home of Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum, a couple who, although not officially designated as foster parents by the guardianship agency, showed a keen interest in temporarily caring for the children. Now, let's take a closer look at the life path of 27-year-old Jennifer at the time, who had a shared past with Tessa. Like Laila's parents, she was born into an unstable, violent environment dominated by physical abuse. Her mother also struggled with addiction, which often left Jennifer living on the streets. As a result of unfavorable circumstances, Jennifer entered the child welfare system at the age of 9. From that time, numerous complaints and reports began to come in about her, as she had great difficulties controlling her anger, and fights and problems were part of her usual behavior. In one of the many shelters she passed through, Jennifer met Tessa, not suspecting that their paths would strangely cross again years later. Despite her behavioral problems, Jennifer decided to turn her life around. She graduated from high school and enlisted in the Army. Later, Jennifer enrolled in a university's law school, following her interest in law. She successfully graduated with a Bachelor of Laws degree and began her career as a lawyer by getting a job at a local law firm. At the same time, she proved to be very confident, a defender of the rights of her community. This made her a respected woman with a large number of followers, so much so that she even began to appear on some television shows, leading her to work in the district attorney's office. Meanwhile, in 2009, she married Joseph Rosenbaum, a man she reportedly met when they were both minors in the foster care system. At the time of the wedding, he was working as a correctional facility officer. The couple's relationship was described as complementary. She was more persistent, dominant, and controlling, while he was compliant, calm, and passive. Joseph suffered from a hereditary and fatal respiratory disease known as cystic fibrosis. This complicated situation gave Jennifer the opportunity to portray herself on social media as a savior and, at the same time, demonstrate that they were both fighters overcoming adversity. After all, people with such a diagnosis live about half the average life expectancy. Another consequence of the disease is the inability to have children, as most men with cystic fibrosis are infertile. However, Jennifer aspired to start a family, and due to her character and determination, she stated that she would achieve this at any cost. So, they filed their first application for adoption but were denied. Jennifer registered under her maiden name, and authorities discovered that she had been in the foster care system. This would not have been a problem, but in her case, it was different because of the history of physical violence. In view of these circumstances, she was not considered suitable for the role of a temporary mother. However, this did not stop her, and she continued to seek ways to achieve her goal. Jennifer submitted a second petition using her husband's surname, Rosenbaum. She was then asked to attend foster parent training while a thorough investigation into her life was conducted. As it turned out, Jennifer was quite a self-centered person and believed that no one had the right to evaluate her. In her opinion, she had come a long way in a short time, given the difficulties in her childhood. She was convinced that any child would be lucky to have her as a foster mother, so she did not agree to investigative checks. This situation made her very angry. In a phone conversation with a child services worker, she lost control. In addition to an unacceptable tone of communication, she also threatened him, saying that he did not know who he was dealing with. Consequently, she was immediately denied the request. In April 2015, while doing her usual work in the courtroom, Jennifer recognized a familiar woman. It was Tessa's grandmother, who had once given her temporary shelter in childhood. As a result of this meeting, and contrary to the laws on confidentiality of juvenile cases, Jennifer found the case and investigated everything. She then learned about the situation with Laila and Millie, as well as Tessa's legal problems and her active participation in finding a home for her daughters. Jennifer set about devising a thorough plan to secure the adoption of the girls. The first step was to contact Tessa through social media, using their former friendship. Having re-established contact, she offered herself as a foster mother for Tessa's daughters, under the pretext of providing them with a loving home and showing empathy for her. At that point, Jennifer had a brilliant life. She planned to apply for a position on the county commission and was in her third year of law school at the university. Her career and public image looked very promising. She had a strong social position, a favorable financial situation, and an ideal marriage. All this, it would seem, opened up a world of opportunities for Tessa's two daughters and convinced her. Tessa felt gratitude and happiness, believing that this woman's life was ideal for adopting her daughters and giving them the home she dreamed of. Without wasting time, she called the social worker in charge of the case and informed him of her decision, asking to allow contact between the girls and the Rosenbaum couple. So Laila and Millie began to visit their home. At that time, although Laila was 2 years old, she was not yet talking and had problems with eating. Sometimes she would overeat, and sometimes she would refuse food altogether. Her older sister, Millie, who was 4 years old, always protected her younger sister. In parallel with visits to the Rosenbaums' home, a woman named Patricia Lambert took care of the girls in their temporary place of residence. She was very scrupulous and responsible for everything related to the two sisters and even wrote down every detail about them in a notebook. Patricia noticed that after visits to the Rosenbaums, the girls returned with burns and bruises. This caught her attention, and she reported it to social services but did not receive an appropriate response. However, she did not give up. Patricia twice took the girls and drove them directly to the social services office so they could be examined because of the bruises. She supported her testimony with photographs, but even after that, her calls for attention had no consequences, as social workers did not conduct a proper investigation. It was commented that, thanks to her connections through work, Jennifer managed to manipulate the situation. She even told the management that the girls' injuries occurred during visits with the biological family, although this was not true and could only be verified by Patricia's careful records. But everyone believed Jennifer, thus distorting the law. On July 24, 2015, Laila and Millie were finally transferred to the home of Jennifer and Joseph. The order was issued by a judge, ignoring the fact that they had not yet met the requirements and necessary procedures to become foster parents. After the girls arrived home, Jennifer sent Tessa a letter claiming that social service representatives had prohibited visits for at least 30 days for adaptation to the new family. This was an absolute lie. Even after this period, Jennifer invented other ways to completely control the girls and prevented them from having any contact with their biological family. But amid all these manipulations, it turned out that Tessa was pregnant again. Obviously, Jennifer wanted to get custody of this child as well, so she could not sever ties or create more tension. Tessa, who was somewhat naive, asked the woman to send her photos of her little children. Jennifer, having about 2,000 images of Millie on her phone, sent her the oldest ones. But Tessa insisted that she send a photo of Laila, and Jennifer had no choice. In the image, the baby had an injured eye, which the woman explained as an accident at the nursery. But this was again untrue, since the girl was not studying anywhere and did not communicate with other children her age. The sister's case was entrusted to a social worker who was supposed to visit the home every month and document everything. He was supposed to check the physical and emotional state of both through separate conversations with them and carefully examine their bodies, but none of his reports reflected violations. Suddenly, in August 2015, a neighbor of the family noticed bruises under both of Laila's eyes. Jennifer explained this by saying the girl fell down the stairs and hit her nose, but the woman was a nurse and was not convinced. So she offered to take the girl to the children's hospital for an examination, as she needed immediate help. However, after a few hours, the neighbor saw that the woman had not taken the baby to the doctor. She went to the house and firmly confronted her, insisting that Laila's injuries should be examined by a specialist because the consequences of such a blow to the head could be serious. Jennifer promised to do so the next day. There were other suspicious incidents with Laila, such as in October of the same year, when she injured her leg after an emergency delivery to an assistance center. It turned out to be a fracture. According to Jennifer, the girl fell at her grandmother's house and while doing exercises at the gym, but later it turned out that the girl was not enrolled in these classes. On November 17, 2015, at night, an emergency operator received a call from a visibly upset mother. "I have a toddler, a foster daughter that I just got. She was choking, and I tried to do the Heimlich. She's breathing, but it's not good. Please hurry. It was Jennifer, who was desperate and asking for help because her little foster daughter was having trouble breathing due to a piece of chicken stuck in her throat. The operator spent about 13 minutes giving the woman directions on cardiopulmonary resuscitation, but she claimed that due to inexperience, she may have performed some techniques incorrectly and was afraid of harming the girl. She said that in desperate attempts to pull out the stuck food and free the child's airways, she tried to do it with her fingers as well as with a butter knife. But unfortunately, Laila could not bear it and died a few minutes later. After the call, paramedics arrived at the house, and even though the girl's body was no longer breathing, they tried resuscitation measures, but it was too late. Examining her, they noticed serious injuries, such as bruises on her back. When asked about Laila's medical history, Jennifer replied that she did not know it because the girl was adopted. The paramedics took the body to the hospital. Seeing the large number of wounds found on the girl, they notified the social worker and alerted the authorities. At the same time, Millie was also taken to the medical center. After examination, bruises were found on her at different stages of healing on the thigh, head, arm, and back, indicating child abuse. A nurse from the hospital testified that although Millie had bruises, they were not as serious as Laila's. It was these injuries to Millie that prompted the police to investigate in more detail the circumstances of the girls' lives, and she was returned to Patricia's home. Meanwhile, on November 18, 2015, a day after Laila's death, an autopsy was performed on her body. Investigators found numerous injuries, including large bruises and fractures. They concluded that the cause of death was severe abdominal trauma, not accidental airway obstruction. After all that happened, Jennifer and Joseph were arrested, but they immediately posted bail and returned home. This caused huge outrage from the girl's biological family and the community at large. At the same time, the case caused a shock in the Department of Children and Family Services. 2 workers responsible for Laila and Millie's case were fired after an internal investigation revealed that they had ignored numerous critical warning signs that could have prevented the girls from being abused. And although there was no evidence that they acted with the intent to harm the children, their failure to follow instructions for vulnerable cases allowed months of abuse to be ignored. In July 2019, the trial against the Rosenbaums began. They faced 49 charges, including murder, aggravated assault, aggression, and child cruelty that led to the death of Laila Marie Daniel on November 17, 2015, and to the injuries of Millie, while the girls were in their care. However, both were found not guilty. The defense argued that Jennifer was only trying to pull food out of the girl's throat when she unintentionally caused her injuries. But this entire argument was refuted by Millie's moving testimony. With all her innocence, she recounted details of the physical punishments she and her younger sister received from the Rosenbaums, particularly from Jennifer. Finally, in October 2019, the couple was found guilty on count 49 of cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jennifer Michelle Rosenbaum, guilty. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Michael Rosenbaum, guilty. Dated this first day of August 2019. All right, thank you, sir. Would you please pass the verdict form to the sheriff's deputy, who will give it to the parties so they can inspect it? Jennifer was sentenced to life in prison plus 40 years, and Joseph received 50 years, of which he had to serve 30 in prison and 20 on probation. Jennifer appealed the sentence, claiming that her lawyer did not provide adequate defense during the trial. Her appeal was considered by the state Supreme Court in March 2023 and was rejected. The tragic outcome of little Laila Daniel's life, as well as the nightmare her sister Millie went through, sparked heated debates around issues of oversight of foster families and child protection laws. The complexity of the system was highlighted and how a single failure can have horrific consequences, depriving children in vulnerable situations of the protection and well-being they deserve. Now that you know the details of this case, I would like to ask you to share your opinion about this horrible investigation in the comments. For today, the case is closed, dear listeners. I will be very grateful to you for subscribing to my channel. Your support is very important. See you in new videos. Goodbye.